Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're all doing well. It is a cloudy day in my neck of the woods. I think we have rain in our forecast for today. Ugh. We all know how how the weather affects, right? But yeah, so it's cloudy. I'm probably gonna finish my laundry that I started yesterday. So right now that's all that's on the agenda. So yeah, I hope you all are doing well. I hope whatever part of the world you're watching this from, I hope the weather is treating you nice. I don't know about you all, but with me, I do better with the warmer weather. Again, this is something that varies in each and every warrior. But for me, I do better with the warmer weather versus it's not cold, it's just cloudy and gloomy. But the rainy days and the cold days, I live in the northern part of the country, so our winters can be brutal. I love the snow. I think it's pretty, especially around Christmas time when the lights are up and the trees are up and all that. I just don't like the cold, so I don't do well with cold or damp, wet, dreary days. But anyway, I digress. So, our last drop, I spoke a little about everything, I believe. Today, I kind of want to focus on abandonment issues because I think it's a huge factor. I think it's something that each and every one of us go through and deal with. Abandonment is, well, it leaves a person wondering why they were abandoned to begin with. It leaves us wondering what we did or said to be just tossed to the curb, tossed to the side, tossed to the background, and just left there. And that's something that, I've often spoke to you guys about how I have a therapist. And let me fix this just a smidge. There we go. And how I don't know. I mean, by the grace of God, I got through the years I got through without her, because having her has been a blessing. I will say, when the idea of talking to a therapist was brought up by my medical team, I wasn't too sure how I was going to like it. I'm a private person, believe it or not. I know some people that are extremely private, and then you have people that are just private people in general. And I know for some people it's hard to wrap your head around people like myself who do videos and put them out on social media. How is it that we can be a private person but yet still do that? I think people have misunderstood a lot about people like myself. Just because we're up here advocating for a cause or, selling things on social media, when you are a public figure, you do live videos, you do video drops, you do your reels every once in a while. That doesn't mean that we're not private. There's a lot about that person, about us, who do those things that are very private. you know, we're often accused of being oversharers. No, there's a difference. I think a lot of people, and I know I'm probably going a little off topic, but trust me, in the end, it'll make sense. There's people that are influencers, and then there's people that are public figures. Those are two different things. An influencer is somebody who shares stories in video, in lives, on maybe their fashion or uh, their health treatments, meaning you know, health shakes or food or something like that. That's an influencer. And then you have public figure, and public figure is more like a person like myself who comes up and we talk about our personal journeys with something. And what that is that's us advocating for a cause. That's us advocating what we're going through. For example, I advocate for CRPS, and do I go out and stand on stadium floors and on a stage and do you know, interviews with the news? No, no, that's a whole different thing. You know, but I still advocate very loudly about CRPS because for a number of reasons. The first real true reason why I started doing this was because when I was diagnosed with it, I used to share about my diagnosis and about my treatments and what I was going through on that day or that week or what have you. And I got shot down. I cruel, hurtful things were said to me, how I was making it more than it was, how I was an attention seeker. And then I had people tell me they wish that I would shut up and stop talking about it, that they were tired of hearing it, that they were tired of me talking about it. I'm sorry you feel that way. But the thing about is you don't have to watch. You don't have to read it. You don't have to listen to it. It's just like these people that will watch television and complain about what's on TV. Turn the channel. If you don't like it, turn the channel. And so when I was being spoken to that way and being made to feel a certain way, I stopped talking about it. I stopped sharing for years. And it wasn't until I got my therapist that I realized once again, I don't have to be quiet. I didn't do this to myself. I'm not making anything up. I'm not oversharing. I'm simply doing what everybody else does every single day on social media, and that is share something about themselves or something they did or pictures of their children or accomplishments that their children have done. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so that's when I decided to rip off the Band-Aid. And I'll never forget it. I was sitting in my living room one day, and in fact, I think it was after I had a session with my therapist. I don't remember if it was the same day or the day after, but I was sitting in my living room one day, and I'm like, you know what? Why do I have to live in secrecy? Why do I have to live under a rock? Why do I have to be made? Why am I being made to feel like this is my fault? Like I've done something wrong? And I ripped off the Band-Aid, and that very day I created a community on Facebook. And it was the scariest thing I'd ever done. But, you know, I did it. And ever since, I've continued in some shape, way, or form advocated about CRPS. And the reason I started was, number one, I was made to feel like I was tossed to the side, like what I was going through wasn't important, that nobody cared what I was living with, what I was going through. And to live in silence and to suffer in silence, it's a courageous thing. Okay, number one. It takes a very strong individual to be able to do that. But to have to live with it day in and day out and not be able to share how it was making me feel or what I was going through that day, it was horrifying. And so that's when I decided to create the community. And I'd never in a million years imagined that it could or would go where it went. I remember when I first created the community, it was public. And I made it public because I wanted it to be easier for others to be able to find. And so I remember creating it that day, and there wasn't much content on it because I had just created it. And I woke up the next morning with over 1,000 people in that group. I was very overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do next. And so I just kind of winged it, and I just started sharing my journey, started sharing my truth. And eventually we did go private, and that the community went for 5 years. It was just recently that I decided I had to limit because I was getting too overwhelmed. Our community had gone through a lot in the past 3 years. And so, unfortunately, and with sad regret, and I do regret it, but I know it was a healthier thing for me. I had to close it down. I had to get rid of it. And I had mixed emotions about that. And I know that by me closing it down was the right thing, was the right decision, because I know a lot of good came out of what I did. I threw caution to the wind, and I decided to share my fears. I decided to share what I was going through, regardless of what others had said before. And because I did, it made a difference in so many people's lives. And so I know that it's sad that it's no longer there anymore, and I'm still trying to get used to the fact that it's not there. But I know because of what I did, and I'm not a hero, I'm not saying I'm some superhero and I'm better than anybody else, but because I shared my feelings about the disease I live with, and I shared my fears, and I was there for other people, it gave me something to look forward to every day. And it helped me get through a huge part of this disability. And I know that it's helped others. Others have met other people. There's been friendships formed from the community. There's been, close friendships, bonds made because of the community. And so I know that it was a good thing I did. I know that it wasn't a bad thing I did, even though there were still people, poo-pooing on it. I didn't listen to the noise. And that is something that you have to work really hard toward learning how to do, and that's to ignore the background noise. It's just white noise in the background, and it's people that are heartless, it's people that are cold, it's people that don't care about another human life that are making that background noise. And so you have to learn to ignore it. It's not easy, because I'm still learning, and there's days where it does get the best of me. I'm not some super woman. I don't have superpowers where, negativity just bounces off me, and there are days it does upset me. There are days that it does still get to me. And there are times where I have to really just take a couple days and work through that. And so I was, it's habit forming when you do something like this, to either go back and watch to edit, or just go back and watch and remind yourself what you were talking about, because each video I do leads to the next. It gives me topic ideas to talk about. And in our last drop I did, I talked a little bit about abandonment, in the sense of the word. And so that's one thing I wanted to talk about today, was how living with something like this, you feel abandoned by your friends, by your family, by your loved ones, and even in some cases by your significant other. I've had, reverting back to the community, we've had many warriors come to us and tell us how their husbands didn't believe that they were in pain, didn't believe what the doctors were saying. Could it have been out of denial? Sure, very possible. But this is the part, and I will continue to focus on this, because this is the part that is so important to me. Being there for one another, loving thy neighbor, being there for them, listening to them. Now, am I saying that it is your responsibility as a supporter to fix your warrior? No, because you can't. Even though I hate that word, and again, for you that have followed me for many years, know I hate that word and know how I feel about it. We're not asking when we come to you. Number one, let me say this first and foremost. Going to somebody for help, especially if you have the same personality that I do, and that is being a very independent individual, being somebody who works things out on their own and problem solves. Okay. And for some reason, I don't think that is taught a lot now. But when I was a kid, problem solving, whether it came from your parents, teachings, or the school, that was the one thing that you were enforced. That was embedded in your brain, was to problem solve, figure it out, and if you are unable to, then reach out for suggestions, for help, for ideas. So for us that come to our families or friends or even our significant other, it's a hard thing to do. You got to understand too that the person living with the disability, and I think that's the problem that I cannot get past because I see it over and over and over again. There are so many people out there, whether it's a loved one, a friend, a significant other, that are not focusing on the person that's living with it. They're focusing on their own needs. And again, I talked about self-love and boundaries and self-worth and all that stuff is very, very important. So when I come up here and I'm talking about certain things, please keep that in mind. Okay? I believe that those are all very important things. And like I said before, you can have all those things, but you can still put others first. Just because you're taught to have self-love, and trust me, I'm learning this as I go. That was not a topic in my world before. But just because you have self-love and you have boundaries and you have learned to put yourself first, you have learned to choose you, doesn't mean that the ability to have love for others is non-existent. And I think people get confused. I think people are like, well, I have to choose me first. I have self-love. I have boundaries. So that means that nobody else matters. No, total opposite. There's two lessons going on at the same time. You're learning to love yourself. You're learning your self-worth. You're learning to create and set boundaries, healthy boundaries. And you're learning to choose you. So you have 4 lessons going on at the same time of also remembering, yes, I can have all that, but in the meantime, I still have to love other people. I still have to have respect for other people. I still have to try to understand and respect what that other person is going through. And I think that the world that we live in, and yeah, I'm going to throw this up a lot because it's true. The world we live in, people are so one-track minded that if they get on one track, that's the only track that matters. Nothing else around them exists. That's it, right there. Boom, I'm on this track and I'm not leaving it. Nobody else matters. Nothing else matters. And I know sometimes multitasking for others, it's difficult for them. They're not quite sure how to do it. And yes, it does take practice, but it is doable. And so when you are putting yourself first, when you're choosing people don't give themselves the credit that they deserve. Some people don't deserve any. But people aren't understanding that, yes, you can still be on that one track, but you can also recognize other tracks around you. And if you see somebody that needs help, it's okay to leave your track to do so. You know, I think that's the problem we have is when I say I don't like this world, the reason I'm not loving this world, the reason I'm not in love with this world anymore is because I've seen so much greed and selfishness. I used to be a person that just without question respected everything and everybody. Without question, trust, trust. I would give trust away like, you know, like it was endless. Um, I was never a person that made anyone earn my respect or trust. Um, you know, and I often hear this phrase of, um, and a lot of and mostly young people are saying this. You know, this is their world and we're just here. But it's they have this habit of saying, well, trust is earned. To a point, yes, they're correct. Respect is earned. I can't agree with that, because if we don't respect one another just for the simple fact of being human, of being a human species, of being in the same world on the same planet, if we can't respect one another, we're going to be in a heap of trouble. You know, you have the younger generation going around throwing that out there like, you are to respect me, and if you don't, I'm not respecting you. Like the world owes them something. And I know I'm going to get a lot of slack for that, but you know what? It's the truth. Okay. If you have been following me for a long time, you know I'm blunt, I'm honest, I don't sugarcoat anything. Um, and so, you know, I was brought up in a generation, and I'm sure there's a lot of my followers that were brought up in the same generation I was brought up in. You respected your elders regardless. Regardless. That was just embedded in your brain from day one. You respected your elders because for many reasons. Number one, they're elderly, you know, they've lived a long life, they've witnessed a lot of things, they've they have a lot of really interesting stories. And I remember growing up, you know, my grandfather, I respected that man as much as I respect God. You know, he was a gentleman. He loved his grandkids. He loved his children. You know, he outlived my grandmother, but he was just a gentle soul, and he had stories. You know, he had been through a lot of hard times growing up and as a young man himself. So just respecting your elders was without question. That just was not a question at all. You just did it. And I have to say, I've seen and I've witnessed how young people do not respect their elders at all, because they feel that they have all the answers in the world, that they know, you know, they know better. And, you know, and I know you're off topic. No, I'm not, because like I mentioned before, life's a domino effect. It's a ripple effect. One thing leads, and it's all intertwined, all of it. Life, our disability, our disease, our handicap, it's all one jumbled up. You know, if you can imagine Christmas lights, right? How many times have you had to sit there and untangle your Christmas lights before you could put them out? And then half the time they didn't even work after you went through all that, you know, 2 hours of untangling these lights. That's life. That's our world. We are just a ball of tangled up Christmas lights, and we're trying to make sense of it. And it seems like every time we get a section untangled, it doesn't work. So we move on to the next. Life intertwines with itself, regardless of what you're going through. You know, I used to, and I was naive for thinking this way, but, you know, I learn, as we all do, as we go. You know, as we grow older, we're learning. We're constantly learning. Life is a classroom, and you're constantly learning. Every stages of your life, you learn something different. And unfortunately, and I want to get into a matter of facts for a second. With CRPS, it's more commonly known in female than it is male. Now, it does happen with the male. It's very rare when it does, but it does affect the male population, just not as much as the female. And that's one thing they're trying to learn and understand and figure out. And I believe it's because of hormones. I think hormones play a huge role in this disease. Let's face it, our hormones, you know, our bodies are built, our hormones, all that is very different than a male. So I think a lot of it has to do with genes, a lot of it has to do with hormones, a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're a female and our bodies change. We go through menopause, we go through stages. So I think that for me, that's my reasoning behind why it affects the female population more than it does the male. I could be just blowing smoke, I don't know, but that's my theory. And it does affect us more, and unfortunately it's the 40 age year range. So it's almost half of our life where 40 is a cutoff period. If you are a person that is going to get it, 40 years old is the age range that they have found that it affects women. I'm not quite sure the age range of men. I don't know, again, because it's rare in the male population. So I'm not quite sure if it's the same age, but I know with the female it's 40. And so it's life we learn, and I think our brains aren't fully developed until we're in our late 20s, my opinion, because I know that even in my 20s, I didn't know everything. I was still learning. I was still learning how to process life. I was still learning a lot of things about myself. And I have no idea where I was going with this thought. Sorry, guys, CRPS brain. For you that have it, you'll understand. But anyway, life is a ripple effect, and everything we do affects the planet we live on, affects the world we live in. It affects people around us. I think that's where I was going with it. We make decisions when we're younger, and we like to throw this word out a lot. It's my life. Yeah, it is. It is your life. But if you have a lot of people in your life, decisions you make affects those people in one way or another. And I think this is where I'm going to lead up to the subject that I really want to talk about today is abandonment. Being abandoned, being just forgotten. Again, I wanna revert to my warriors and the community, because that was one of the topics that sadly was brought to my attention a lot with the community. How our warriors felt that their families just left them, abandoned them, didn't want nothing to do with them because they were different, because they were now broken. And unfortunately, it does happen. I myself have had, and I still do have had, abandonment issues. And I think when you're a person that goes through life and has experienced that a lot, when you're being abandoned, when you've been left to just battle it on your own and just to figure it out on your own. And I will tell you, that is the worst type of mental abuse there is. I've been through, and I've never really talked about my story, but I've been through that portion, and that's something that's really hard to get over. I think too, when you've been abandoned, that type of mental abuse really, it opens your eyes to a lot of things. It is something that you will sit for hours and analyze. Um, it is something that if you are a crier, and I think we all do, some of us just don't show it, but there's been a lot of crying sessions in my shower. There's been a lot of crying sessions. I will just be sitting here and, you know, an emotion will hit me, and, you know, or if it's because I'm going through something, and, you know, this is my thing too, when you're a person who's been abandoned and you're going through something, whether it's something you've gone through before or whether it's something different, usually, and this is why I don't understand this world we live in, because again, when I was younger, if you had a problem, you could turn and there'd be somebody there. Now there isn't. And we have a lot of warriors that are going through it where they just, and it's not necessarily needing someone to be there to fix it, just need somebody there for an emotional support. You know, the one thing about living with CRPS is you go through a lot of emotions, a lot. You know, we have moments where we're happy one minute and the next minute we're just irritable, and then we have our moments where we're just emotional, and then we have our moments where we just don't understand, we're just tired, we're just out of spoons, we're exhausted, all we want to do is sleep. So with living with this disability, you have a lot of emotions. In fact, I have learned that I have more emotions than I thought I ever had. And to just turn there and have that emotional support is a big deal. It's huge. And I think having an emotional support system, you get through a lot of hard times a lot easier. You're able to mend a part of something that needs that emotional support and it's not there. And when you have it, you just feel that comfort, you know, even when, for example, if you're sick, okay, when you were kids, if you had a mother that was, and my mom, you know, anytime those kids got sick, we never slept in our beds. My mom would make a bed on the couch, and I did this for my girls, and I think maybe that's why, because this is what I was brought up with. It's just second nature. You make a bed on the couch, and that's where you were until you were over that flu or that whatever it was you were dealing with. And no, my mom wasn't sitting next to me 24/7. She had things to do. She had, you know, other children to take care of, or a household to take care of, or what have you. But just knowing that I was in that living room and my mom was there, it was comfort. And when you are living with a disability, especially this one, and I say especially this one because our disability is like no other. Our disease is like no other, because it is, and I say that for many reasons, but one of the reasons is because it changes so much. There's no comfort point with CRPS. It changes so rapidly and it changes so much that by the time you have figured out a way to deal with one situation, another one is there. So it's a constant learning thing. And because it changes so much, and because our needs change so much, we need a strong support system. And when you don't have that support system, you are essentially abandoned. You know, maybe some don't want to look at it that way, but that's the truth of it. When you don't have that strong support system, you've been abandoned. When you turn and for that emotional support, for that shoulder, and it's not there, you've been abandoned. Abandonment is never something a human being should ever have to witness or live through or anything. But when it is at your doorstep and you are left with no other option, you learn to navigate. You have to. You have to learn to navigate through that abandonment, because if you don't, it will drive you absolutely insane. And I think because of that abandonment, we grow stronger. We end up forming this wall. Again, I think too, the abandonment also goes along with, and I mean, it's hand in hand, that support, that need of help from somebody. And so when we, essentially, when you're reaching out, and I had mentioned before, if I reach out to you, it was because you were my last resort. Now, some people may take that as a slap in the face. It's not meant to be. Because I reached out to you, I've already ran out of options and ideas of my own. It should be thought as flattery, because you're coming to me for answers, for ideas, for help. And knowing that, and I have a lot of warriors that have grown into very independent people, which before they were independent, but they didn't rely on just themselves alone. And because of their disability, they've learned how to. And so when I reach out, it's because you're my last resort. It's because I had no other option. That should not be taken as an insult. That should be taken as feeling like, wow, my warrior, this person has already walked through their ideas and tried to figure it out, and they couldn't, so they came to me. I would take that as flattery. I would be flattered, I would be honored, because you put the trust in me to come to me, knowing that you are an independent person, knowing that you are a problem solver, knowing that you have went through every scenario that you possibly could go through. And at the end of that, you came to me because you needed my help. I would be honored. I would be honored. And I think that's the problem. It's like people get offended by that. Oh, what, I was your last resort? Like you didn't come to me first? No, problem solvers don't. Because this generation is so used to not having to solve their own problems because mommy or daddy or somebody else was always there to pick it up and fix it for them. And I've come across a lot of generations, like a lot of young people. And again, sorry, but I'm not going to sugarcoat the truth. There are so many young from this generation that have never been taught how to problem solve. And the minute they have a problem, who do they run to? Their parents, an aunt, an uncle, whatever person was there throughout their entire life to fix it for them, they go to them instead of trying to figure it out themselves. And I've taught that to my children. I'm not saying that I'm the perfect parent, but that was the one thing because it was instilled in me as a child. And so that was the one thing I instilled in my kids, is that figure it out. If you get frustrated or upset with it, sit down, take a breath, and then go back to it. And if you're still unable to come up with a solution, then yes, ask for help. Asking for help should be our very last option across the board. I don't care what it involves. I don't care if it's your support system. I don't care if it's getting help through a state-funded program or whatever it is. I feel that I will figure it out. I will sit down, I will analyze the problem, I will go through my steps, I will try to figure it out, and if I can't figure it out, then guess what? I will come to you. I will reach out. You are my last resort, because I'm a resourceful person, meaning I was taught to problem solve, and that's not a bad thing. So for any of my warriors out there that have done that have tried to figure out some way and was unable to find an answer, and then you reached out to somebody and they got upset with you because they were your last resort, it's not shame on you. It's shame on them. You know, that's just ridiculous to get upset over. I've had people get upset at me over that. Oh, I was your last resort? What? I was the only one that would help you? That's the first thing that comes to their mind. That you've already scanned the world and nobody would help you, and so you called them. That no. That's not how that works. Okay? You know, I've had that thrown in my face a lot. A lot. You know, I sit down, I try to figure out a way of getting it done. And if I've reached out to, I've had that thrown in my face. Oh, what, I was your last resort? Well, yeah, you were. Why, nobody else would help you? Nobody else would do it for you? No. You were my last resort and my only resort that I came to because I tried to figure it out on my own. So that was one thing I wanted to discuss also today, because there have been so many misguided thoughts on that, you know, oh, well, you know, they couldn't do it. No one else would help them. So guess what? Here I am to save the day. No, you were the only person that I asked. But, you know, I'm trying to stay on topic, but there's so many things that I want to discuss because, again, everything intertwines. Everything is just intertwined. It's wrapped up. It's just this bundle of mixed up, tangled up Christmas lights. And everything, you know, when you're untangling that, you know, what's that one thing you're going to find at the end that's connected to all that mess? The plug. So everything, and I also want to say this because I feel like I need to. I am very metaphorical, meaning a lot of what I talk about, I put it in a metaphorical way where others will understand it. I've always done that my whole life. That's who I am. And so I try to explain theories and ideas with things that we all would have in common at some point in our life. And I know that there's not a person on this planet that has not one way or another dealt with tangled Christmas lights. Okay, so metaphorically speaking. But you know, it's sad that we have so many warriors dealing and are trying to work through abandonment issues. Abandonment issues aren't just child related. And I think that's another misunderstood product of our society, is that when you speak about abandonment, people automatically assume you're talking about children. Because yes, let's face it, a lot of it does happen in our childhood. But it's not necessarily childhood related. It could be a person that was never abandoned in their entire life. And now, as an adult, they're dealing with it. They're going through it. So abandonment issues aren't just child related. And I think a lot of our younger generation that have parents that are living with this disability, I don't think they think about that. I think that is like the last thought in anybody's mind, except for the one that is being done to. Let's face it. Reality is, people that live with CRPS get abandoned a lot. More so than they would if they weren't disabled. Now, when you're a healthy person and you have a healthy life and you are a busy person and you have a lot going on and you're just eating life, you're just loving it, you're just living it, abandonment is not even a thing. It doesn't exist. But when you're a person that unfortunately has had to change their life dramatically and drastically overnight, abandonment is a huge part of it. We get left behind a lot. We don't get thought of a lot. Um, it's not, people don't come to us. We're not their first priority. We're not the first ones on their list to call. We're not the first ones that they want to go and visit or spend time with. We get put on a shelf, and that's where we stay. And the only time that they dust us off or bring us down from that shelf is if it's a family function. I'm being realistic here, okay? For my warriors out there, when was the last time somebody came to your house, to your home, to check on you, to just visit with you for the day, because they know how hard it is for you to get out? A lot of us are unable to drive. How many times have you had a friend, a loved one, come to your home just to spend a few hours with you? Just to make sure that you're okay, to make sure that you have food in the house, to make sure that your laundry is taken care of, to make sure that your house is clean or organized. How many times? And I'm gonna give it a time limit. In the past month, maybe 2 months. We'll give you 2 months, because life does happen and they have jobs and a life and whatever. So in the past 2 months, how many times has that happened to you? How many times in the past 2 months has, if you have kids, have called you or text you or just popped up and surprised you with a visit to check on you, to make sure you're okay? Especially for our warriors, and this is another sad but unfortunately very true event that happens. I have had warriors where their husbands have left them. They have separated from their significant others because of the disability, because their significant others couldn't handle it. It was too much for them to handle. Yeah, it does happen, sadly. Many years ago when I was diagnosed, that was one thing that actually my doctor himself said to me. Because TMI, when you live with CRPS, you don't really think of the physical part of the relationship as much as you did when you were healthy. And that was brought up in a doctor's visit. I was asked that question. And I thought it was an odd question, and I just kind of looked at my doctor, and he said, I know it's a little TMI. He says, but unfortunately, I have had others who their relationships or their marriages have split up because of the physical part is no longer there. The constant doctor visits, the constant medications, the constant therapy, the constant treatment. Life has had to change for these people, for these individuals. And because it has had to change in a way that this person didn't want. Oh, I hear a lawnmower, tractor or something. So you may hear in the background, I apologize. It somehow, instead of this person being there through thick and thin with their partner, they decided to leave them because they were no longer the person they were when they married that person, or they were no longer the person they were when they entered that relationship with that person. So because they were no longer that person, this is too much for me to handle. I didn't ask for this. When I entered this relationship, I didn't enter into this. I actually had a warrior come to me one time and tell me that her husband told her this wasn't the agreement that I agreed to. This wasn't. No, it very much was. When you signed on that dotted line, when you took an oath, basically is what you're doing when you marry somebody. When you took that oath in front of your family, your friends, and God, for better, for worse, sickness and health, Yeah, you did agree to this. You don't just marry somebody or stay with somebody because they are healthy and they can, you know, that's not what that's that at that point he had put a condition on his love. And love has no condition. It's unconditional. Meaning you are going to stand by that mate of yours and you are going to provide the comfort that they need, and you are going to provide the understanding that they need, and you are going to be there with them through the good and the bad till death do you part. And I think there are so many people that put conditions on their love, on their relationship. I'll be with you as long as you remain healthy. I'll be with you as long as I don't have to change my world and it's not turned upside down because you got a condition. I'll love you if you can give me what I want. That's the world we live in. And that is why I repeatedly say, I don't like this world. I'm not in love with this world anymore like I once was. And that was many, many, many years ago. I have fallen out of love with this planet. I have fallen out of love, not so much the planet, because our planet is beautiful. It's beautiful. If you sit and you just listen to nature and you just watch, it's beautiful. Without the chaos, without the loud music, without the arguing, without the gunfiring going off, without the riot. It's a beautiful world. I just don't like the people that are on it. I don't like what we've become to one another. You know, I don't like the fact that this world has grown so selfish and so greedy. And it's like everything has a condition to it. I'm not that person. I will never put conditions to my love. I will never put conditions to my friendship. That's just not who I am. If I love you, it's unconditional. If I have respect for you, it's unconditional. I'm not going to respect you only if. You got to give me your own reasons why I don't respect you. You are the person that will hand me those reasons on a silver platter. You are the person that are going to hand me the reasons why I don't like you. There's no conditions to that. I believe that everybody deserves to be loved. I believe that everybody deserves to have a support system. I believe that everybody deserves respect. I believe, yes, trust. Yeah, you kind of, that grows over time. I've learned that. Trust me, when I was younger, I didn't. I just trust you. I don't know you from Adam, but I'm just going to trust you with my life. Trust is a little bit different. It doesn't have conditions, but it's something that grows with the relationship. But I don't put conditions on my feelings for people. How I feel about you is going to depend on you. It's going to depend on what you show me. It's going to depend on your behavior. It's going to depend on how much I can rely on you. So if I'm a certain way toward you, that's because of you, not because that's how I chose to be. My feelings toward that type of personality has developed and grown because of the way you have shown me things. So if I act a certain way, and trust me, if my words don't say it, my face will. I'm sorry, my face talks a lot, and I've tried to learn how to, but it doesn't listen. But if I act a certain way toward you, that is because you yourself have displayed a personality or a habit or a belief that I can't respect, that I don't trust. I'm just being honest. And like I've said before, I'm one of a human sponge, because I will sit and even in my own relationships, trust you. Trust you, I know a lot more than I say, because I don't feel like I have to say everything. Just knowing it is proof enough for me. I don't have to sit there and share with you every single aspect of how I feel about you. That's not my job. And, you know, I absorb. I'm a human sponge. I absorb the energy around me. I absorb the room around me. I know things that, and no words have to be said. I absorb your energy, your vibe, your aura, everything. I absorb it. And I can tell whether or not you're a true good person. I can tell if you are going to be that person that your warrior needs. I don't want this to be all about me. I want it to be about us. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. It's just, it saddens me as a person, as a human. A human that respects life, that has respect for another human life, that has respect in general, because that we're all on this planet together. And we may all be different little tribes, but at the end of the day, we are all on this planet together. And if you're going out in public, how you treat another person that you may come across is going to reflect on them and their little tribe. You know, if you go out and you're just nasty to people in general, I feel like we need, you know, another little planet to put all of the ignorancy on, because it just doesn't mesh well with people of my generation who were raised and taught to have respect for human life, who were raised and taught that love is unconditional, who was raised and taught that just because your loved one gets sick, that doesn't mean that we get treated like we have the plague. Like we should be put on a whole different planet ourselves. That's how we get treated. Again, I'm just being honest. I see, I've heard, I still continue to see, I still continue to hear, not just in my own world, but in warriors across the board, you know, stories and things that they have shared with me. I shed like crazy. And it continues. It doesn't stop. And I don't understand it. I will never understand how somebody can just abandon their loved one. How they don't want to take the time to learn. Yeah, it takes time. Because newsflash, we're still learning ourselves. And it's going to continue. It is going to continue to be a learning curve for everybody. Everyone that wants to play is going to learn the rules one day. And they change because there are no rules to CRPS. There are no set rules. There are no standard guidelines. It doesn't have them. And I get it. It's hard to play a game that no one knows what's going on, and no, you know, one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing. I get it. It can be confusing. It can be scary. The unknown is always scary. But you have to understand that the person that's living with it is more scared than you are. Because we don't know what our day-to-day is going to be like. We don't know what our hour-to-hour is going to be like. Minute to minute. We just don't know. And so when you're coming to us and you're asking questions, which we appreciate, but when we're trying to explain it to you, you need to listen. I've dealt with this on more than one occasion, where I'm asked a certain topic or situation or how I'm feeling or what have you, and I try to explain, and instead of that person listening, like really listening, learning, and just diving in and asking follow-up questions, which are never any, they want to flip it around and make it their own. At that point, you're not listening. You heard what I said, but you're not listening. Someone who's truly listening to you are going to ask follow-up questions. They're going to put that homework to use. They're going to try to learn as much as possible. They're going to take notes, whether it's on paper or mental notes. They're going to ask follow-up questions. They're going to continue to check in. They're going to continue to want to know and understand. But when you have people that ask questions and then that's it, and there's no follow-up, you're not learning. You're truly not learning because you truly weren't listening. You just wanted to hear what you wanted to hear. And when I mean hear, we hear things all the time. Listening is when you are learning from it, when you are asking questions, follow-up questions, new questions, when you are taking all that information that you were told and putting it to use. That's listening. And we don't have enough of that. And that's where the abandonment issues come in. It's real. It's sad, it's heartbreaking, it's scary. You're not understanding. We that have that type of treatment, we sit and we're pondering why. You know, why is my family abandoning me? Why are my friends, why are my loved ones, why is my husband leaving? Why is my significant other wanting out? Why? Because I'm different? Because I'm not the same person I was before? So you're punishing us. You're punishing us for being different. You're punishing us for not being the person we were when you first met us. You are punishing us for an action that we have no control of. You're the judge and jury, and we've been convicted. You are punishing your loved one for something they have no control over. Trust you I, if we had control of it, we wouldn't have it to begin with. You're punishing us because we're still sick. In the beginning, I'm sure that, in the beginning there was understanding to some level. There was some support to some level. And then when they realized that we were never going to get better, that things were only going to get worse, they put their hands up and they walked away. Because they just couldn't handle it no more. They just couldn't deal with it no more. They didn't want to hear about it no more. That's not love. It's not. Because love doesn't abandon you. Especially unconditional love. Unconditional love grows with the circumstances. It learns to understand. It learns to have patience. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love does not judge you. It doesn't abandon you. It doesn't give up on you. It's hard. Having unconditional love for somebody is very hard. And I think that's the other problem, is people want life to be easy. Well, if I love you, it should be easy. No, it never is. Love is supposed to grow, it's supposed to mature, it's supposed to be understanding, it's supposed to be kind, it's supposed to be supportive. I mean, it's not always going to be agreeable, because we're all different. We all have our own opinions on things. But unconditional love is just that. It has no conditions. Unconditional support is just that. You don't support somebody, well, if you stay like this, I'll support you. But the minute you start changing, I'm out. And that's basically what 99% of us are going through. 1% of warriors have the amazing support system. And if I believe, truly I believe that when you have a support system that is real, We're much happier. We're not as depressed. We don't feel, our emotions, I think, are more leveled out. We don't have as many emotional days as we do when we don't have that support. We're like a broken toy. You know, the toy's broken. Well, just put it in that box with the broken toys and we'll throw it away later. There's no attention given to that toy because why? It's broken. Why would I give it attention? It's broken. It doesn't serve me a purpose any longer. It's broken. You know, a lot of my warriors are afraid to speak out about how their situations make them feel because they don't want to deal with it. And I get it, because it can be quite argumentative. It can bring a lot of ugly to the surface. But again, if you don't, it's just going to fester and get worse. And as a person who lives with CRPS, stress is a huge flare. It can cause huge flare-ups. And I find I try to avoid those flares as much as possible because they can last for days. And I don't want to be in bed for days. I've been there, done that. And there are days where I'm still, I'll spend a day in bed. I call them my bed potato days. But for the most part, I don't want that because that's not the life I want to live. Do I have to live life differently? Yeah, of course. I've been doing it for almost 13 years. My life had changed very quickly. And I had to learn to live this life that I never imagined myself living. It just wasn't in my cards for me. I was healthy, I was active, I worked, I was, a go-getter. I wanted to live life. I wanted to love life and enjoy life. And that's what I was doing. And this just wasn't in the cards for me. This was not where I imagined my life would be. But I also know that everything does happen for a reason, good or bad. I do believe that our story is written out long before we even enter it. And there's only one person that knows. And that story is written out. And at the end of each story, they come together somehow. There's people that you've met that have been brought into your story, and sometimes they're there to stay, and sometimes they're only there for a season. If you really analyze life, and I have, it's a story. We are all living out a story, and sometimes our story isn't the story we want it to be. And unfortunately, you have to adapt to that story. You have to change your character. You have to... It's not that we are rewriting our story. Our story's already been written out. This was written out for me long before I knew. And we're forced to learn how to live life all over again. Imagine being, almost half of your life, and you've created this image. You've created this way of life. You've spent years in college to have a successful career. You got married, you had children, and and all of a sudden in your 40s, this thing just bursts through your door. It didn't even knock. It didn't ask to be let in. It just was there. And you're dealing with this guest that you didn't invite, that won't leave, that has come in and planted roots and isn't going anywhere. And you have to learn how to navigate it. You have to learn how to keep it happy. You have to learn how to feed it. You have to learn how to give it energy. You have to learn how to understand it. You have to learn its language. And it's not easy doing that. And it's really not easy to do it by yourself. It's a foreign thing. It has a foreign language. It has everything about it is foreign to you, and you have no idea what to do with it. And so you just sit by and you're waiting and wondering what it's going to do next. And it doesn't ask your permission. It doesn't involve you in the conversation. It just does what it wants, when it wants. And you don't have control over that. You are navigating your life. You're navigating. That's all you're doing. You're not the driver. You're not the one in the driver's seat. You are the passenger who is just, you got a map and you're telling it where to go. You're trying to navigate it and it's not listening to you. It's gonna, you tell it to make a right turn, it makes a left. So it doesn't ask you for any permissions. It doesn't ask you for directions. It just, you're not navigating your own life. You're trying. You're giving it direction. You're speaking it out to the universe. Sometimes it listens and sometimes not so much. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't listen. It's like I said, it's taking that left turn when you want to go right. And it's bringing in all of its cousins, all of its relation. You don't know any of them. And they're just intruding in your life too. These are things that take over your mind, your body, your soul, your world. So when you get abandoned by people you thought loved you, let's just put it out there, because love would never abandon you. You find out a lot about people in your life that, and some of the things are very ugly and make you question your relationship with these people, make you question exactly what you meant to them, make you question everything about it. We should never have to worry about that, ever. Again, we're already worrying about so much. We're already dealing with so much. And, I'm so tired of hearing about, well, I have a life. I'm busy. I have this. Okay, well, guess what? We once had a life too. We once were busy too. You're preaching to the choir. Because we already know how life can be. We know you have a life. We know you're busy. We don't need you throwing it in our face every time we come to you for something. We already get what you're doing. We were there. We once were part of it. All we're asking is for you to set a little bit of time aside for us. We shouldn't have to beg. And I'm done begging. I don't beg anymore. I don't chase. I don't plead. I don't make deals. I don't do any of that anymore. I'm not going to chase down people to be in my life. Just as so many of my warriors have been doing. And I've had so many of them, I wish that I could be there for each and every one of them. Because I know what it's like not to have anyone. I'm just going to be real. I have people in my life that deal with health problems, that have something going on with them, whether it's health, whether it's a big change, whether, something. I reach out to people all the time. It might not be every day. I don't have the energy to I'm not a phone person, number one. I don't like talking on the phone. Now, I've done it because I've had people that were going through things in my life that needed that shoulder. And so I was there. Even though I didn't like talking on the phone, I was on the phone. And there were situations where I was on the phone for hours with a person. And I'm not a phone person. I never have been. Even when I was younger, I wasn't that teenage girl that was always on the phone. Now, my sister, on the other hand, oh my Lord, I think she was born with the phone to her face. But I'm not that person. I never have been. But I have done it out of love and be wanting to be there for that person. I did it for them. And I think that's the problem, is people aren't taking themselves out of the equation. They're just, again, yes, choosing you is important. Putting you first is important. But there are going to come a time when you can do both. And there comes times where you have to be like, you know what, this person really needs me. I don't know if they have anybody else or not to talk to, but they've called me. They need me. And I'm going to be there for them, regardless on how I feel about being on the phone all day, or how I would, especially when you live with CRPS and you make an agenda for yourself for the day, it's a routine, okay? It's not so much an agenda as it is a routine. And there have been moments where I have put my routine on the back burner because a person needed me. This person in my life needed me. Whether or not they had anybody else to talk to, they called me because obviously they wanted to call me, they needed me. So I, putting what I had woken up that morning and told myself, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. I've set spoons aside to do this today. This person calls me because they're upset, because they're scared, because they're worried, because they just need an ear. So I put myself off to the side. I didn't get done what I wanted to get done that day because I was on the phone for hours with this person. I'm not a phone person. I don't like being on the phone. I don't talk on, I do it. I don't like it, but I do it because there are some points in your life where you have to. But to sit on the phone and talk to a person for 4, 6, 8 hours, even an hour for me is long enough. I'm not a phone person, and there are people out there that don't like talking on the phone. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just our preference. But there have been moments in my life where I have done that for people that I care about, for people that I love. Even though that's not my thing, I've taken myself out of it because that's what they needed. And I'm not saying that makes me a better person than the next. I'm just using it as an example of, I don't come up here and just talk and expect everybody else in the world to do what I say, and I don't practice what I'm preaching. I practice what I'm preaching. That's why I'm preaching it. There have been moments where even in the sick body that I live in now for 13 years, there have been moments where I have put my needs off to the side or totally just got rid of them altogether for the day because someone else needed me, because I needed to be somewhere else. I needed to be doing, not that I needed to, but it was asked of me. I didn't have to. I could have been like, I'm sorry, I have things to do today. I have limited spoons and I need to use them on this today instead of on your problem. I've not done that, and I would never do that. Now, if I'm invited to go somewhere or somebody asks me for their, there are going to be moments, because I'm learning, that it's okay to say, you know what, today's really not a good day. I'm not, I'm going to be in bed all day. I'm not having a good day. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm in a flare. It's okay for me to do that. In the past, I would never have. In the past, I would have done it regardless and then dealt with it later because my body would have been screaming at me because I ignored my disability. I ignored its needs. And so, yeah, there are going to come times where it's just going to be a little different. But again, I still have done that. And I will continue to do that. If I know that I'm able, even a little bit, I'll do it. But this is just an example of how I have put myself, taking myself out of the equation, I guess is what I'm getting at. And more people need to do that. We don't have enough of that. We don't have enough people. You can still choose you, but there are going to be moments where you're going to have to think outside that box and be like, this person really does need me. Even though I need me and I need to do A, B, and C. Sorry, they're cutting the grass across the way, so, and my window's open, so you're gonna hear the lawnmower. But there are gonna come moments in your life, especially for your warrior. Sorry, I fidget with my hair a lot. That's what we need more of. Regardless on, you have something to do that day and your warrior calls you and is needs that, let them have it. I honestly don't know the last time someone texted me to ask me how I'm doing. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm not putting names out there. But I honestly, truly don't know when the last time that was. It's sad. And I know I'm not the only one that has dealt with that sort of thing. Like I said, friends of mine, just people in my life, we'll just say people in my life, when I know that they're going through something, and it takes energy to do everything in our life. It's taking me energy to do this. I still have a few loads of laundry that I want to do. I made my bed before I came up here. And so when I'm done talking to you all, I'm going to get the rest of my laundry done today. And that's all I'll probably do. You have to understand, people like us, we have limited energy. To live life takes a lot of energy. You don't realize how much energy one consumes or one uses when you're healthy. Because a healthy body, you just get up and you just do it. And you don't think about it. When you live with CRPS, we have to plan out everything. Every single thing down to the wire. When we have enough energy to take a shower, when we have enough energy to do just everyday daily stuff, wash our dishes, make our bed. That is the one thing, unless I'm in it or I'm having a really bad day where I get up and I'm just like, I'm not doing anything. I'm gonna plant my butt right here and this is where I'm gonna be. There have been a few days where I've not made my bed, and I will tell you that has throughout the day it taunted me, like, ugh, I gotta get this bed made. That is the first thing that I do, is make my bed. Now, I don't make it the moment I get out of it, because there are people that do that. I don't. I have a routine, and I'm slowly getting my routine back. My life, and some of you know about my life the past few years, was not good for me. It was everywhere. I fought a battle on my own, and it about killed me. I went through a lot, and I dealt through a lot. People that I thought would always understand what I was going through because they were going through it too. I saw a lot of true colors of a lot of different people over the years, and it was very hurtful. I shedded a lot of tears, but out of all of that muck, it only lit my fire, and it pushed me to get through a time that I wasn't sure how I was going to get through it. And with all of that muck, my routine was disrupted. Hold on. Sorry, they're like right across the way, so. Okay. And you know, it also showed me that I had to be very, very careful who I put my trust in. And even though it also showed me that even though these people they earned it, doesn't mean that they will later on take it for granted. And so I learned a lot of different lessons over the years. Again, through life, you'll learn a lot of different lessons. Everything in our life, it's just complicated. It really is. CRPS is very complex, and we may have to end this. We're over an hour anyway, but they're like right there, and I have so much more to say, but I don't want to be yelling at you guys. So we're gonna end this because of them out there, and I'm gonna get my laundry finished. But just know that abandonment is a big thing, and a lot of our warriors go through it, and they shouldn't have to. And if you are a person who abandoned your warrior, you might want to think twice about that, because one day they're not going to be here. And there may come a time where you wished you had been there for them more than what you were. Life is fragile. Life is a gift. Life is a blessing. Regardless of what you are going through, regardless of the heartaches, we all go through something. We all have a story. We're all going through something. And when I say this, it's not to lessen whatever it is you're going through, because everybody's problems are important. But it is to maybe get you to think a little bit. When you're a healthy person and you're going through something, you get through it and you move on, and everything's good. It might be a little different. It might be, whatever, but you get through it and you move on. When you are a person that lives with CRPS, we might get through a hard time, but there's always another one right there. We never get through it. It's constant. And I've often spoke about this because a lot of people won't. A lot of people don't want to go down that dark valley. CRPS can end our life. It is something that can be deadly. And it could happen anytime it wants. And that is always a thought in the back of my mind. Always. That, and so when you're a person that's sick, when you're a person that is disabled, when you are a person that lives with CRPS, We want to be around our family as much as possible because we don't know. I don't want to get emotional. We don't know when that goodbye is going to be our final goodbye. We don't know when that I love you is going to be the last time we tell you I love you. You know, we just don't know. And I think that's something that everyone who is dealing with a CRPS warrior needs to think about, needs to put in perspective, needs to really, really take a good look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, have I been there for my warrior? Have I been there to help them get through this scary, lonely time? Am I a person that they can sit there and be proud of because I was there for them unconditionally? When they are gone, am I going to be in that group of I was there for them? Or am I going to be in that group of I threw them to the curb, I abandoned them, and I didn't want to hear what they had to say? I want to be in this group. I want to be in this group that has a heart. I want to be in this group that understands. I want to be in this group that wants to support and guide and love and just be there for that person, because I know what it's like not to have anybody. I know what it's like to feel abandoned. I know what it's like to not have my phone ringing off the hook, people asking me how I'm doing. I know what that feeling's like. And it's a feeling that nobody on this planet should ever, ever have to face or feel or know in general about. We need to love each other more. We need to be there for each other more. We need to stop putting our greedy needs. Yes, again, it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to choose you first. It's okay to have self-worth and self-love. But it's also okay to love somebody else unconditionally. It's also okay to support and be there for somebody. You can do both. Learn to multitask, because this world doesn't know how, and that's the problem. It's either me or you. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. So I'm gonna go, and I hope that I touched on the issues I wanted to talk about today. It's so hard to. I try to stay focused, but it's so hard because, again, like I said, everything is intertwined. But I'm gonna go because they're right out there, and I don't want y'all hearing that. So I'm gonna go. I'm wishing all of my warriors out there an amazing day. Know that you're in my thoughts, you're in my prayers. I'm sending you gentle hugs, and I'm wishing and hoping that you have an LPD. For you supporters out there that continue to support your warrior no matter how hard it gets, you are awesome. You are amazing, and keep it up. Be different. Be the doer. Be the ones that make a difference. And again, like I said before, maybe if more supporters spoke out, it'll open the eyes of others that need to support their warriors a little bit more than they do. So I'm gonna go. I love you all. I'm wishing you a great day and a great rest of your week. And we'll talk again real soon. Until then, ciao for now. Bye.